And so when we don't do that, so it costs us a lot of money. Adhering to these plans should be the default for city staff. Adhering to it should be at the inception of a potential project. Because and we can see the pattern over the last certainly several years that the city allows an application to be put in and it's not in compliance with these the general plan and these specific plans, and then it turns into a lawsuit. So we've had 2 referendums recently with respect to the fact that the city has been ignoring really the will of the people in San Juan Capistrano. So we have incurred huge legal fees because of all the litigation that's related to that. So, this is, number one, we are the staff and the city council. We are here we're in a fiduciary relationship with the residents of this community. And they have overwhelmingly and consistently made it clear that we are to keep this a small village-like community and to honor the heritage and the history that we have here and our historic buildings, and that we are to follow. I mean, we spent actually tons of money getting the general plan and the Historic Town Center master plan in place too. So we're not listening, and because of that, we have outrageous amounts of legal fees that we certainly can't afford. And we know that we have people that are willing to put in the effort and the time to do referendums. So I think that we need to take heed of that situation. So when I ran for council, I ran on my campaign promises were to follow the general plan and to keep San Juan special, and absolutely not to approve oversized developments. And I think, yes, we want more money to fund the city's activities, but it needs to be appropriate development for San Juan Capistrano. So, for us, for the city council to get into the situation where we've got basically a conflict of interest with the residents because we're being driven by the amount of money that we can raise for the programs that I guess that we want to put in place, and we're diametrically opposed to what the residents want. The residents want better quality of life, preserving the historic small town feel of San Juan Capistrano. They certainly don't want more traffic. They want their roads paved, and they want us to beautify San Juan, but not to sell down the city, sell the town down the river, because we are motivated by the amount of money that we might make out of a transaction. So that's really, my priorities are the same as when I ran for office. And again, a huge majority on the votes that I got. So that's what the people of San Juan want, and that's who we need to be listening to. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all of those. You've checked off quite a few from my list, so it's shorter. I'm going to ask you to put some letters next to mine, and that will kind of give us an idea of whether they're things that this would be the city's responsibility or would be for real long-term or things like that. So if I say D or E, that we'll talk about that later. I do like the idea that Roy Nunn put forward about diagonal parking. I think that would add quite a few spaces downtown at a very low cost, so that's a D with a dot. Another one that Councilman Farias brought up the other day, and he's quite right, he just purchased an all-electric vehicle. And so I think it made him aware of the fact that here in town, we really don't have electric charging stations except for the Tesla ones. And those are only for Tesla cars. So going forward, I really do think that we need to make electric charging stations a major part, or not a major part, but a part of our parking plans in all parking lots. There's now a new Ford vehicle that does 610 miles on an electric charge, which makes it a lot more practical. Second is something that this is a long-term, way long-term, so it's an A category. And it's the fact that at some point, we're going to have driverless vehicles driving around our town. There are going to be delivery trucks, there are going to be buses, vans, things of that sort. Might not be our choice, but it's going to happen eventually. And so it would be good to begin thinking about it, thinking about how it's going to impact. So my only thought is some kind of study group, and that's an A because I don't think it's something to spend money on at this point. But I do think if there's a group of citizens that, think this is worth taking a look at, this would be something good to do. The ghost train, bless its heart, it's still a priority on my list. I got caught in it again the other day. Instead of taking 5 minutes to get to City Hall, it took me 25. And I live about a quarter of a mile away. So, the ghost train, bless its heart. In terms of the hotels, I think that our city ought to be doing whatever is necessary and as quickly as possible to get both of these hotels going. And I think that's something that we need to do. In terms of the property at El Camino Real and the Ortega Highway, like a lot of other people, I would opt for a performing arts center. I would like to see it managed by a nonprofit foundation, which would be responsible for maintaining the facility and booking the various resident companies and traveling entertainment. Now that we have 2.4 acres that has come back to our community, I'd like to see that developed as, and this isn't the final name, but it encompasses the concept, a San Juan Capistrano Community Western Writers Center with an arena, with bleachers, and well-maintained day paddocks. And that may be in the C category, I'm not just sure where it would fall in terms of funding. I know that it's probably not in the budget at the moment. Then I also believe, because like so many of our residents that I've heard from over the last 2 months, that the eyesore that is the vacant lot, which has been called open space, and is open space, but is nonetheless not very pretty and is not very useful, and in fact invites a lot of negative things. At the corner of La Novia and South San Juan Creek, that I think we need to begin thinking about how if that were not to be developed by the San Juan Creek, San Juan Hills Golf Course, how we could do something to improve that space and how we could fund it. Another thing that I think is, again, looking forward, because it's not something that's going to happen this year, but it's something that can happen in the future, is to work with the Ecology Center to eventually develop vertical and hydroponic gardens serving farm-to-table restaurants, etc., on the Kinoshita Farms property. In South Orange County, we're one of the only cities that has a plot of land that would be suitable for farm-to-table farming. And one of the reasons that the Kinoshitas aren't farming on it right now, and the Vermeulens aren't farming on theirs, is that the 19th century and 18th century and 17th century concept of farming is not financially feasible. However, there are companies already in Laguna Beach and in, I believe, Irvine or Tustin, that are doing either hydroponic, where they save the hydroponic, one of them saves 90% of the water. They're able to make the same produce with 10% of the water. I mean, that's phenomenal. And well, believe me, water is the main expense in farming. Same with vertical. Vertical farming also saves a tremendous amount in water. So we have a resource that I think we really ought to at least think about when it comes up as a possibility. We ought to think about another way to use it that we could benefit financially from it. Something else that concerns me, and a lot of these come out of this rascally SCAG organization that we've talked about. SCAG, bless its heart, the Southern California Association of Governments, does regional planning, and they have some goals that we might not all agree with. They'd like us all to be crammed into the downtown for our living. They'd like us never to set foot in a car. And there are quite a few other goals of similar sort. But the other side of it is that they give us a window into things that are happening. And one of the things that is happening and has been happening, particularly, and it's been accelerated over the last 10 years, is that a lot of the ways of working are changing, and the opportunities are changing, and they're changing faster than a lot of people can cope with. And so we're going to have to reinvent ourselves, perhaps as often as every 10 years, as time goes on. It could even be 5. My niece lives in Munich, and it's been really interesting watching the evolution of she and her husband are both computer people. They're software people. They're internet savvy and all that. Okay, they started out doing websites. Then they moved from websites to having an app company where they did nothing but create apps for people all over the world.
Is this a priority that we're discussing?
Yes, it is. So I'll thank you. I let you speak. It's my now they're moving on. They've moved on from apps onto megadata. And the point being that this has all happened within a cycle of about 6 or 7 years. Where do we come into it? In our city, it would be a wonderful thing if we could do what is beginning to pop up in cities like Temecula, downtown Los Angeles, places all over. And that's some kind of incubator where people that have ideas can come and have counsel to move their ideas forward and have other resources that would be helpful to them and can have perhaps the equipment that they might need, whatever it is that they might need. This might be something that we partner with the chamber. It might be something the chamber would do on their own. But it's something that I'd like us to begin thinking about because I'd love to be able to keep our people here and keep their opportunities here. So that's why I see that. And then public safety has been well documented, and I agree on adding the police officer. I agree on code enforcement officers. I think those should continue to be very high priorities. I've been approached by 2 other cities that are interested in exploring the concept of a tri-city police department. This was brought up 2 years ago at our retreat. At that time, we went and talked to several other cities and there was no interest. But with the high increases, there seems to be more interest. So, as I say, certainly it's not something we could do on our own. It just wouldn't make sense, but it might be a possibility. Now, along with the LED conversion and the smart water, which I agree definitely needs to be moved forward, I did bring an item to council again a year and a half ago. It was supposed to have been brought back a year ago, and I've been constantly asking about it, and oh yeah, that'll be next, oh yeah, that'll be next. But I really do think we should be looking at solar power, at least for some of our buildings, if not all. And it's more and more practical, and it's a fraction of the cost of other electric power. So I think that's something that we should definitely bring back to council, some information on what we could do. We're looking currently at the ROP lot and working with the school district, and I am hopeful that we can move that project along because I think it would give us a very good long-term solution, and it might help us to at some point have a city hall that would be in a more appropriate spot. On the water, the other aspect of the water that I think we should continue to keep track of is DSAL. Fortunately, the group that is working with Dana Point and looking at a desal plant in Dana Point is looking at a diagonal slant drilling process that's a lot more environmentally sensitive, and it so far has good reviews. And those are my priorities. And, something like that. So now I'll turn this back to you, and see if there's some things in there that we need to, I'm sorry. See if there's some things that we need to consider adding or including in the current budget, or if we, how we need to move ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, well, now that we've heard from all 5 council members, and I think we have a pretty decent summary. My handwriting is tough to read, but I can read it. But I would say let's open it back up to other council members to comment on some of the things that we're discussing.
Thank you. Pat mentioned something about the budgeting, and I would like to propose, if it's not too big of a process, I'm not sure, creating a financial review committee where each member of the city council picks a resident to review our budget.
So, I'm not sure that we should leave Ortega and the proposed, what I refer to as the normalization of Ortega completely off the table in terms of a discussion point. I'm not sure what everybody's hearing or what they're picking up, but my sense is that, Caltrans is going to complete this project. They may well hold to the plan that was worked on for some number of years and agreed to. But I worry that they won't necessarily.